What's up, everybody? It's Thursday. We got 5 NBA games today, a little bit of a downtick after the massive slate yesterday. Yesterday, for me, was a okay day. Hoped for better, was, I think, 2.5 units up or something like that. But for the volume that I did yesterday, was hoping for better. Some of that was hoping that the Heat would be better, but they were terrible. And they had a nice little dust up on the bench. So that's provided some fun stuff for Twitter and everything. Anyway, we got 5 games today, a little bit less to get through, but let's get through them nonetheless and see if there's anything we can find as we try to figure out ways to bet this crazy NBA. This is an NBA breakdown Thursday, March 24th. First up today, we got the Cavs at the Raptors. Toronto is up to -5 now with a 215 total. This one started out at 3.5, I believe, or even 3. It is all the way up to 5. So looks like some money coming in on the Raptors here. And I guess you could kind of understand why. It looks like Gary Trent Jr. will be playing, which is definitely helpful. OG is still a game time decision. And I think that's even a bigger deal. OG helps them a lot on both ends of the floor. Pretty stabilizing force, can kind of do everything, can guard a lot of different positions. So if OG plays, that would change things for me. I'm going to approach this as though he's not playing. I think maybe he would have been ruled in already if he was going to be. But obviously, you got to check these lineups all the way right up until game time because we're not going to know right until the very end. In terms of this matchup specifically, these two teams just played on March 6th, which was a 104-96 win for Cleveland. So very low scoring game, which Toronto tends to be involved in a significant amount of the time, and Cleveland does too. You see it in the total here at 215. Not crazy low, but relatively low. Both teams are coming in on 2 days of rest, but Cleveland 7-5 against the spread, Toronto 8-4 against the spread on 2 days of rest. So not too much there to read into. For Cleveland, this is kind of a weird situation where they have one game away from home sandwiched in between one game away between 5 at home and then 3 more at home after this game. So a weird thing where they just travel for one game. Cleveland lately, they've been adequate offensively, I would say. They only have one game out of their last 10 where they scored under 100, and this is a team that absolutely can score under 100 points sometimes, so it's actually not too bad that it's only been one out of the last 10, but at the same time, this isn't a team that's just been going off offensively either. I think this team has just been mediocre in every way. They've been mediocre offensively, they've been mediocre defensively. They have been slightly worse on the road over their last 14. That's a sample size that I like to look at. And they have been a little bit worse. It's not massive or anything, but their offensive rating is about 2 points worse away from home over their last 14, and defensive rating is 2 points worse as well. So we don't want to take too much away from that, but it certainly isn't the strongest spot if we're going to look at all the stats. Now, Toronto, on the other hand, they've played 8 out of 9 games away from home, but they've just had 2 days off, and now they come back to home through the rest of the month. Sometimes I think the first game back at home after a long road trip isn't actually the best spot for teams as they get settled back in. But I think it helps Toronto a little bit that they did have 2 days off and not just one coming back home. Toronto's a super hard team to cap. And if you've listened to me at all, I've been talking about this for a while where their offense is just all over the place. Sometimes they can't hit 100. Other times they're up to 120. Sometimes it feels like there's almost no in between with this team, and you don't know which way it's going to go. Their last 2 games, they scored 93 and 99 against Philadelphia and Chicago, which is really not great, especially that 99 against Chicago. I mean, Chicago's just been bad. So to score under 100 against them is pretty pathetic. Their defense, also hard to cap. 4 of their last 10 games, they've allowed between 100 and 104. 4 of their last 10 games, they've allowed between 112 and 116. Now, which category would Cleveland be more likely to fall into, 100 to 104 or 112 to 116? Maybe we should put up a poll. I would vote between 100 and 104 on that poll if I was going to take it. Cleveland just relies a ton on Darius Garland right now, and he's great. So it's not like he can't go off, but it's just hard to rely on one player so much. Toronto has been worse at home than on the road over their last 14. It's not a massive difference. They've actually been a little better on defense, but worse on offense. Oh no, I'm sorry. They've been worse on defense as well. Five defensive rating points worse on defense. So for Cleveland and Toronto both in that home away category, this is not the best spot for either of them. To me, this feels like a game between two teams that should be relatively closely matched. I would think that this game would be close all the way along. And the fact that this game is up to 5 now, and I think I saw earlier that maybe there's a 5.5 out there as well. I don't hate it. Toronto's not a team I trust, and Toronto does come out and blow people out now and then. That's always on the table. It's on the table with any NBA game. But in terms of what's likely to happen, I would say that this is a game that likely ends up where both teams are between 100 and 110, and it's close all the way to the end. So I'm not interested in getting involved with this total, though I would play the under if I was pushed to take one. But at 5 or 5.5, I'm interested in Cleveland here. I think that's not a bad look. They do need to keep winning too. I mean, both these teams have some motivation to win coming into the end of the season, but that's what I like here. Next game up, we have the Bulls at the Pelicans. The Bulls, who I just mentioned, who have been pretty damn terrible. They scored 113 points versus Toronto at home in their last 8 games here, and 114 versus Detroit. But aside from those 2 games, they've scored 98, 102, 110, 103, 101, and 106. And at least half of those defenses they faced were pretty bad defenses. It's hard to know for sure what's happened. I mean, I suppose watching the games, I mean, you get a sense of what's happened to Chicago. And a lot of it is just that DeRozan has not been absolutely on fire. He went through a stretch of games, I mean, along to 15, 20 games where he was just absolutely amazing, draining everything, scoring 40 on a regular basis. I was going to pull up here DeRozan's game log, but he just, as I've watched him, he's not hitting as many shots. It doesn't feel like he's shooting as well. He's not as confident. And if you look back at the game log here recently, he scored 21, 26, 19, 25, 21, 25. So for a while now, he's been scoring under 30 for sure in almost every game, and really down around 20 in a lot of these games, where he had that stretch where he was at 30 plus for probably 10 straight games. I think that this is a bad combination between he and Zach LaVine, because I think they're both very ball dominant. And I think it's actually made LaVine a worse player playing with DeRozan this year. And so these roster construction issues are showing up. And if DeRozan doesn't come out and play lights out, I think this team's going to struggle offensively because they don't move the ball very well. And, LaVine in particular is not put in great positions when he's got to wait around for DeRozan to do everything. So I think that's where we're at offensively with the Bulls, and I don't see them being able to just flip a switch and turn it around because DeMar DeRozan can't automatically go back out and start scoring 40 again. Their defense, the Bulls, has been okay at home recently, but on the road, it has not been, and they're on the road today. They've given up 126, 129, 125, 112. And that plays out over the last 14 games. Their defensive rating on the road has been 121.9, where at home it's been 108.7. So just a massive disparity for the Bulls on the road, not the kind of disparity that you want. Their offensive rating has been 5 points worse on the road as well. So Chicago has been a bad team, and they've been a really bad road team. The Pelicans on the other side, I do think they need Brandon Ingram back. I think they're a much better team when they have him. I think they're actually a dangerous team when they have him. But they've been adequate without him. They've still scored 120 or more in 5 out of their last 10 games and 115 or more in 7 out of the last 10. So they're still playing pretty well offensively. Obviously, CJ McCollum is a huge part of that. And then defensively, they have had some games where they gave up a ton of points, 131 to Phoenix, 142 to Charlotte, 132 to Memphis. All of those, though, are offenses at least that have huge potential upside. Charlotte doesn't always play well, but Phoenix and Memphis, both really good offenses. I mean, I'm not going to say that I fully trust the Pelicans defensively, but they're going up against a Chicago team that's just been anemic in a spot where on the road, Chicago's been even worse than at home. I lined this game at Chicago 109, New Orleans 119. I could actually see New Orleans scoring even more than that. So even at Pelicans -2, I think this is a good spot for them. maybe one of the better spots of the day. A couple other cappers who I tend to put a lot of stock in what they say. Capper Craig is one of those. If you've seen his stuff, go follow him, even if you're not. He's pretty big on this spot for the Pelicans. And based on all the stuff I just shared, those are reasons why I would agree and say this is a pretty strong spot for them today. Total wise, probably staying away. If anything, I take the over, but I think I stay away from the total. Next up, we have the Pacers at the Grizzlies. Memphis, 12.5-point favorites. 237.5 total. Both these teams are on a back-to-back, and they've both actually been pretty good on back-to-backs. 8-4 against the spread for the Pacers, 7-5 against the spread for the Grizzlies. Right now, we don't know if Ja Morant is going to play or not. He is listed as a game-time decision. I'm actually seeing him listed in the lineup still with that game-time decision tag, but it looks like he's trending toward probable. This is definitely something you want to watch because this does change my perception of this game a little bit. I talked about how Memphis, by the numbers, is better without Ja Morant this year on yesterday's breakdown. I think I did anyway. So I'm not going to go over that all again, but I would say if he doesn't play, I would see the Grizzlies playing some great defense. Indiana's not a great offense, so I would see them really getting stifled offensively. But if Morant plays, I think this is a higher scoring game across the board where both teams put up more points. I'm not going to like it because I actually already bet the Pacers team total under because it looked like earlier in the day he wasn't going to play. So that is a pick that I'm going to be less excited about if he gets ruled in. In terms of a few other numbers here, Indiana scored 120 or more in 5 out of their last 10, but they also have had quite a few games where they haven't scored much. They scored 106 against Detroit, 102 against Memphis, and that was with Ja Morant, 109 against Sacramento. So they're really not a great offense, but when they play bad defensive teams, they can run up the scoring quite a bit. They've allowed 130 or more points in 3 out of their last 10. They did only allow 98 and 110 in their last 2, but those games were against Portland and Sacramento, so not real great offenses. I think Indiana, again, can probably do okay defensively against bad offenses, but they're really going to struggle against good offenses, and Memphis is a good offense. Speaking of which, they've scored 120 or more in 6 out of their last 10. They have allowed 120 or more in 4 out of their last 10, though, which is not phenomenal. But like one of those was the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie, and they still won that game. They scored in the 130s. So, and that was without Morant. So they're still performing well, even when they allow a lot of points. Memphis has been better at home lately. Their offensive rating is 7 points better, and their defensive rating is 3 points better. So it's a positive for them to be at home here. The other thing is that Indiana really has nothing to play for other than to lose to try to help them in the draft lottery. Memphis has a little motivation. I mean, they're probably locked into the 2 seed in the West. It wouldn't hurt them to win a few more games just to make sure and nail it down. But Golden State is behind them by 2 games, and Golden State's been playing poorly enough. I don't think that'll be a big threat. So we do want to watch and see who's going to play here on the back-to-back, make sure people are in. But I have this as a 15-point Memphis win. My total is around 225 to 228, and so I actually would lean toward the under here. But again, that was without Morant. If Morant plays, I think it's a higher scoring game, but I still would favor Memphis, even with this larger spread. Next up, we have the Wizards and the Bucks, and we just got news here that Giannis is out tonight. Middleton was already out. So this is another bummer for me. This is what you get for betting ahead of time sometimes. I took Milwaukee, I believe, at -12. Now it drops to 9.5 with the news that Giannis is out. You know, I don't feel like that's a bet that's dead. Washington is so bad, and they're not trying right now. They're coming in on 2 days of rest. They're 3-9-1 against the spread on 2 days of rest. If you need more evidence that Washington is terrible at the moment, they just lost to Houston 115 to 97. I mean, who the hell scores 97 points against Houston? Like, you know, me and 4 people that are watching this could go out and put 97 points. Not really. I couldn't score against. I understand they're professional basketball players, but you get my point. Houston for an NBA team is not good, and they're especially not good on defense. So, yeah, could Washington show up and actually try for a game? I suppose so, but I think this is a team that's cashed it in for the season. It's another team that kind of needs to lose for draft positioning. Uh, their defense, like I said, has been pretty bad. They've allowed 115 or more in 9 out of 10 games. I would say this Bucks roster, even without Middleton and Giannis, is still a mediocre NBA team, especially with Lopez back now. They've allowed 120 in 5 out of the last 10. Their offensive rating on the road is 14 points worse, and they're on the road here. Their defensive rating is 8 points better. So, let's take that into consideration. Milwaukee, on the other hand, has really been on a tear, especially offensively, scoring 120 or more in 6 out of their last 10. So Milwaukee's been playing really well offensively, and I was kind of banking on that Washington's defense has not been good and Milwaukee's offense has been great. With Giannis out, I like it a little less, but honestly, I would still lean toward Milwaukee minus 9.5 in this game. I think Washington, like I said, has cashed it in and is just a pretty bad team. So I would be surprised if they come out and play well here. Kyle Kuzma is out. I don't know that it matters that much at this point, but just to say he is out. It is a little. Oh no, Washington, as you'd expect, lost 9 of the last 10 head-to-head between these two teams. So this is a game where I think the over is sneaky, but man, I just don't trust the Wizards' offense enough. So stay away from the total. If you really want to have something on it, I'd still go with the Bucks, but definitely not as confident as I would have been. Last game of the day is the Suns at the Nuggets. Denver is -4, and the total is 231.5. Now, this one has had me scratching my head all day, to be honest. When I first saw this, I think that it was Denver -3.5, and I just thought, what is going on? I mean, when I opened it up, I would have expected to see a line of, Phoenix at least -3.5 here. So I've been trying to figure out why the line is the way it is. The only thing I could think is that Phoenix is on a back-to-back here, and maybe they sit, like maybe somebody already knows that they're going to be sitting people, but it's not any news that's come out that that's true so far. I mean, obviously, if they sit Booker and Ayton, then yes, Denver should be favored. But that's the way this line feels to me. Like at least one of those two guys is sitting out. If both of them are playing, man, this just feels like I haven't had a line like this in a long time that feels like such a big trap. And so it makes you want to stay away from it because you just think, how the hell could this actually be the line? But a few things that I would say here. Number one is Phoenix has been okay on back-to-backs. They're 6-6 against the spread. But Phoenix can lock up the number 1 seed in the West. They're still going for the regular season record for wins as a franchise. And they have 2 days off after this game. So I could understand if it was like one of those 4 games in 5 days situations or something that they're going to want to rest people. But everybody's getting a rest after this game. If anything, this feels like a spot to me where they carry the momentum through of beating Minnesota last night and just put it on Denver to put an exclamation point on their clinching of the West for this year. So it doesn't make sense to me that this would be a letdown spot for them unless they're sitting people. Just a few other numbers to back it up. I mean, I think that's the big stuff we have to wrestle with because the numbers are going to point to Phoenix. They've scored 120 or more in 6 of 10 and 110 or more in 9 out of 10. They've allowed 117 or less in all but one game out of their last 10. So yeah, they do allow some points sometimes, and we've cashed some overs with Phoenix lately, but their offense has been better than their defense has been bad. Offensive rating of 119, both home and away in the last 14. They've just been solid. Defensive rating of 110. That's fine. It's not nothing to write home about, but it's not horrible. Denver on the other side has been really inconsistent. They've scored 114 or more in 6 out of 10, but then they have some really low scoring games too. It's just like they show up sometimes and they don't show up sometimes. The big thing is their defensive rating is much, much worse at home. 118.2 compared to 104.5 over the last 14 games. I mean, these are the things that I normally look at to get a read on games that would say this is a bad spot for Denver and it's a good spot for Phoenix. Yet here we are with Phoenix as 4-point underdogs. So I am definitely still wrestling with taking Phoenix on the money line here. I mean, to get plus money on Phoenix on the money line against what is a good team, but not a great team in Denver feels like a gift. And it also feels like a trap. So, if you think it's not a trap, I would hit that. If you think it is, then please let me know why, because it just doesn't feel right. I could go on and on about that. It doesn't help to keep doing it, but that's where I'm at with this game. I haven't bet it yet. I'm going to keep watching to see if people sit, but if nobody does, it is very likely I will end up with some money on Phoenix here tonight to close out the West. All right. That's the 5-game slate for today. Hope y'all can go and make some money, whether I do or not. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what you're thinking, especially, hey, if anybody has thoughts about this Suns and Nuggets game, I'd love to hear what you're thinking. Let me know what I'm missing on this line. I'd love to hear it from you. Appreciate the likes, retweets, comments, reviews on the podcast, all that stuff. Appreciate you. Many of you who just interact with me on a regular basis too. That's what makes Twitter fun for me. So you guys know who you are. Thanks for doing it. Thanks for the support. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you later on Twitter.